Hey everyone, Liam here from AFC Motorcycles in Palmerston North, and today we're going to be reviewing the 2021 350 Exc-F and especially the WESS edition that they brought out for 2021. Some of the key features on this Enduro model obviously is the bigger 9-litre tank on it, the 6-speed wide ratio gearbox on it, the PDS suspension in the rear and the Explorer forks in the front. Over here in New Zealand we use the 350 Exc-F for a lot of people that do trail riding, people that race enduros, dad that wants to do a lot of riding around with his kids. So the Exc-F is obviously the enduro bike in the KTM range. It is often found as what they call the softer version of the 350. They do the SXF, the Exc-F and obviously the Exc-F that we've got here today. So with it being a little bit softer, the power curve on these is way more gentle than the other two bikes. So what it means is you can roll on the gas a lot easier and it doesn't have that snappy bitey power like the other bikes do. It makes it a lot more nicer for when you're in like wet conditions or slippery conditions. It just seems to track a lot nicer in those conditions. And also if you're a dad out following your kids around, it's nice and low down sort of power and it's real gentle, so you're able to just to kind of cruise around with the kids, you know, behind the kids, and it makes it nice instead of barking everywhere, you know, going left and right behind them. The suspension in here is obviously you have the PDS shock and obviously the Explorer front forks on the standard version. Because this is the WESS version, it does have the XACT forks in it, which has the air chamber on one side. But going back to that standard 350, it provides a real nice plush feeling in the fork. So quite often when you're riding along, the initial stroke of the fork or the shock is really plush and it's real forgiving for most riders. If you're a more experienced rider, I would say that the suspension on this definitely is a little bit soft for when you start picking up a lot of speed and going through like really fast whoops. It does seem to bottom out a little bit. That's where I think maybe Exc-F is more suited, or obviously get the spring rates sorted out for your weight. Just run through a couple of extras we've got on this WESS edition 350 here. KTM brought this out in 2021, obviously as a replica from the bikes they ride in the championship over there. At the front here we've got a brake disc guard over the front disc. We have the anodized hubs front and rear, and also the spoke nipples are anodized orange also. You have the anodized triple clamps on here. You do have a Tubius aftermarket handguard setup that we've put on ourselves. We have the mapping switch and the traction control switch over here. The different graphics setup, the factory seat we have on here. We have the bash guard, we have the brake snake, the anodized oil filler cap. At the rear here we have the wet disc, which is better during the wet and muddy conditions because it holds more heat, and we have the twin ring rear sprocket. So for me, when I go riding and I choose to ride the 350 Exc-F, I really like it in the trees. When I do a lot of riding in the trees, I find the PDS rear shock, it obviously doesn't have the linkage there, so I find the bike actually sits up a little bit like that. So when you're turning and standing up a lot in the trees, I find it really nice because it's really maneuverable, whereas the other bikes that have that linkage, I find they sit down a little bit more, and it is actually a little bit harder to turn. Also the power on it, I find really nice in those trees set up again, because it's second gear, you know, you kind of cruise around and there's nothing too snappy and it doesn't get too out of control. You can kind of keep it at a nice momentum and just roll the throttle on, and the power curve's just so flat it tracks really well. For me, yeah, these bikes in the bush are an amazing bike, and then also out in the open, obviously 6-speed wide ratio gearbox, you can hone along pretty quick there, and yeah, they provide a lot of fun out on the trails. And if you've got any questions, then fire them through and we're happy to help.